This is a great pleasure for me to be in this T20 conference. First of all, I'd like to thank this opportunity to bring you a voice of the European Union. A voice of those who in the European Union, they really care for the world and they want to keep high level of international cooperation. And in fact, they know that global governance needs to be reformed. You should know that we have many voices thinking like that in the European Union, and we keep a very influential role. So we intend to use it for the future in cooperation with all the partners of G20. Let me start with a quick assessment of the global picture we are dealing with. We have a very serious situation for the planet and for humankind, for sure. There is a clear gap between global challenges on one hand and global governance on the other hand. We know that the world is now multipolar, and this means that the multilateral system, which was created in the 20th century, is outdated and needs to be deeply reformed. Then we should ask, who should be the driving forces of such a reform? Well, let me be very frank. I don't think that when it comes informal clubs, the G7 can make it. The G20 is much more up to the task because this is much more representative of the world. So G20 has a very important responsibility, and particularly when we have the leadership by Brazil and very closely also South Africa. Let me tell you that there is a plan to reform global governance and to update the multilateral system. The plan is underway with many difficulties, but has a particular moment this year in September in New York with the Summit of the Future, and next year with 2 summits on social development and financing for development. I really believe that G20 is the most important forum to give the leadership for all this process. So let me come with something more concrete, building on our discussions in the T20 and the G20 in general. SDGs agenda. SDGs agenda remains the official agenda of the United States and is recognized by all countries in the world. This remains very important because we have the poison created by conflicts of the 20th century, which are still there, but we need to ask if a country really wants to implement SDGs agenda, particularly if we are speaking about a developing country. Is this possible? Well, this is extremely difficult. We know this. And this is difficult for the reason Luciana just referred. We have a world with many inequalities. And inequalities inside each country, many times they reflect inequalities between countries. So in fact, behind this, we have a global order which is unbalanced, and we need to rebalance somehow. That's why we believe that the moment has come for what we call a new global deal to rebalance the world. And let me just point some of the key priorities for this. And I'm so pleased to see that they were completely confirmed by the task forces of the T20. The first one, when it comes climate emergency, yes, we do have climate emergency, but don't make a mistake. It's really impossible to address this properly if we don't address at the same time the problem of poverty, hunger, and social inequality. The 2 things, they need to be together. And this means that in many cases, we need to have a stronger international cooperation to support developing countries to industrialize themselves, but with a green approach, creating better jobs, lifting living conditions with a new approach. But this means a lot of international cooperation. Then we have, second important point, is the digital transformation and the technological issue as a whole. We know that there are many bottlenecks when it comes technological transfer. What we really need is co-creation in technology, and this is particularly important when we are moving to a new technological age driven by the digital revolution. This is the biggest revolution in our lives. This is changing everything. We know this. And the problem is, for the time being, we don't have a global governance for the digital transformation. This is a missing piece of the multilateral system. So we have a big force coming from all of us, our data. Building on our data, we can invent new algorithms to provide better solutions for all development problems, but this deserves a stronger and democratic global governance framework. So we need to build it together. And then we have a very important bottleneck, which is the financial. And on the financial, we start with the fiscal space at national level, where, yes, there is something wrong there, because a country which is trying to implement SDGs should be supported to implement SDGs, should not be blocked to implement them. So this should be corrected. And then we need to complement the budgetary effort of each country with a big global investment plan, which should mobilize private finance, public finance. The role of MDBs were clearly underlined. We know that this is something which will be a crucial priority for the Brazilian president of the G20. But beyond it, we have sometimes situations of shocks, emergencies. And definitely we need to use powerful tools such as special drawing rights in IMF to support those who are more in need. So this should be a clear reform of the IMF approach, and that's why we really need to reform the financial architecture. Last point I'd like to underline is about taxation, because in the end, a lot depends on taxation. And right now, we are discussing how to build a global framework for taxation to make sure that tax resources are channeled in the right direction. So, look, I'm so pleased to see that all these ideas were in a book we are about to launch here today, New Global Deal, coming from European side. But this is something we'd like to give as an input for our work, and something I'm so pleased to see that is completely confirmed by the conclusions of our task forces in T20. So let me conclude just with a wish. Building on our collective experience during the pandemic, so such a painful experience, where we learn ourselves that nobody is safe until everybody is safe. As a paraphrase of this, I would like to say, we need to understand that nobody is developed until everybody is developed. So this is my wish. Thank you very much.